Before I begin, I just want to make sure that everyone is in the right place because there are a couple of presentations going on tonight. This is the kindergarten orientation and referendum. Okay, perfect. Great turnout. Thank you for coming. So this is an exciting night for you, and this is an even more exciting night for us because this is the first time that we get to meet our new parents. This is the first night of a new partnership, and this partnership will hopefully last for 13 years. So I just let that sink in for a moment. 13 years. So in 13 years, your child will be graduating Fairlawn High School, class of 2032. That's great. But I won't rush you. So let's take a step back. I want to thank Assistant Superintendent of Education, Natalie Lacatina, Assistant Superintendent in Special Programs, Nick Norcia, our board members, Mary Wallace, Emily Cohen, and Jean Banta for joining us tonight. We also have a few kindergarten teachers in the audience. If you could just wave, thank you for coming and being a support. And we have a few supervisors with us. Sue Gons is here, right in the front. She also has an incoming kindergartner. And I saw Liliana Lopez. And thank you, Liliana. And Gary Pankowitz. Thank you, Gary. So you're going to get a lot of information tonight. A lot. But please don't be overwhelmed because this is not the first time that you will be hearing this information. There will be a lot of opportunities for you to ask questions, to reach out to the schools. And as we will present during this evening, there is an orientation for you and your child to come and visit the schools in June. But we'll give you a little bit more information on that. But before we get into our presentation, let's just introduce ourselves. I am Nancy Schwint, principal of Warren Point.
Hi everyone, I'm Kelly D. I'm the principal at Lindcrest School.
Good evening, welcome, and I am the principal at Referendum School. My name is Jill Lindsay.
Good evening, Principal of Forest School, Mike Lee.
Good evening, Principal of Milton School.
Welcome, Christy Delacrio, principal of Westmoreland School.
And we wanted to give you a sneak peek into what a day in the life of a kindergartner would look like.
It might seem crazy what I'm about to say. Sometimes she can take away. I'm a hot air balloon that would go to space. With the air, like I don't care, baby, by the way. Because I'm happy all alone. If you feel like a room without a roof. Because I'm happy all alone. If you feel like happiness is the truth. Because I'm happy all alone. If you know what happiness is to you. Because I'm happy all alone. If you feel like that's what you want to do. Here come bad news, talking this and that. Give me all you got, don't hold it back. I should probably warn you, I'll be just fine. No offense to you, don't waste your time. Here's why. Because I'm happy all alone. If you feel like a room without a roof. Because I'm happy all alone. If you feel like happiness is the truth. Because I'm happy all alone. If you know what happiness is to you. Because I'm happy all alone. If you feel like that's what you want to do. Bring me down, can't none. Bring me down, love is too high. Bring me down, can't none. Bring me down, I said. Bring me down, can't none. Bring me down, love is too high. Bring me down, can't none. Bring me down, I said. 'Cause I'm happy all alone. happy come along if you feel like a room without a roof. Cause I'm happy come along if you feel like happiness is the truth. Because I'm happy come along if you know what happiness is to you. Because I'm happy come along if you feel like that's what you want to do. Here come bad news, talking this and that. Give me all you got, don't hold back. I should probably warn you, I'll be just fine. No offense to you, don't waste your time. Here's why. Because I'm happy come along if you feel like a room without a roof. Because I'm happy come along.
Okay, so in order to make this as interactive as possible, we have set up a Poll Everywhere website where you can type in questions you have in real time. So say we're talking about something specific about kindergarten, you have the opportunity at that moment to say, but what about this? And we will address those questions as they come up. They're completely anonymous, or you can put your name in, that's up to you. But you would have to go to 22333, and that's the 2 number, and then you type in Jill Lindsay 418, and that will automatically get you into the website that you can add your questions. And again, we'll address them as soon as they come up. And then we'll also download it and answer every question and then have it available on all of our websites, so you can go back and check that at another time.
Briefly about the kindergarten curriculum and programs that we utilize here in Fair Lawn. The first of which is Everyday Math. Fair Lawn has been utilizing the Everyday Mathematics program for over 15 years now, and the teachers are really comfortable and confident teaching this curriculum. As you saw in the video, it's all hands-on and interactive for our students. They're working with numbers, they're working with manipulatives, they're taking numbers apart, and they're really getting a good, strong number sense in kindergarten. One of the most important pieces of this program are the games. So students are interacting with partners and groups throughout the day, playing math games. One of the most common ones is a game called Top It. It's a lot like War, where children are flipping a card and it's showing them dots on a card, and with a partner they're determining which is higher. And as they progress through their elementary years, those games are still there, they just get more difficult as the years progress. So it's a wonderful program. Our students love math. If you ask even our 5th graders what their favorite subject is, many of them will say math. I know, it's pretty shocking, but they love it because it's interactive and it's hands-on. You will receive a website once your student starts in September to our Connected platform, which allows you to play online math games at home and gives you a variety of activities to enjoy at home with your kindergartner. Although there's no formal kindergarten math homework, you will from time to time receive different activities to do with your child, such as count the number of windows in your house or play a game at home, so that the students are realizing that math is all around them every day. And that's our Everyday Math program. A little bit about our Readers and Writers Workshop program. We use a differentiated model. So you'll learn that your student is reading at different progression levels throughout the continuum of the year. When they enter in September, each teacher will meet with each student to ascertain their reading level. And then students will read from their book bins, as you saw in the slideshow, books that they enjoy reading that are at their independent reading level. Teachers also meet in small groups for reading instruction, and they will work with students at their instructional level, which is just a little bit higher. Students will bring home book bags to enjoy and share with you at home. They also do a lot of partnership work, so they'll read with partners, they'll read independently with the teacher will model different types of instruction and strategies, and then the students will have the opportunity to try that. Same for Writer's Workshop. You'll hear a lot about your students working on narrative pieces, even persuasive pieces, descriptive writing, nonfiction and fiction text. Same type of model where the teacher will identify a strategy, link that to what they're learning, and show them how they can try it independently in their writing. You won't believe how much your child will blossom over the course of the year. Many children will come in not reading at all and will leave reading you stories at night before they go to bed at a level C or D. So I'm sure you will be amazed at how much your child grows using the Reader and Writer Workshop program.
So another critical component of your child's literacy development is the Phonics First program. It's really an amazing program to watch. It's research-based, and it's a strategy rooted in Orton Gillingham, so it's very multisensory. And the children are introduced to a 3-part drill. So the first day they may be learning the sounds of a letter. The next day they may make shapes with their bodies. They'll be using sand to trace the letters, so it's very hands-on, and it's done on a regular basis. So they really are acquiring those strong decoding and encoding skills they need to really boost their literacy learning.
So when the next generation science standards were adopted, Fairlawn looked for a program that would address these new standards while also incorporating elements of STEAM and STEM. And that's what our Knowing Science program does. Knowing Science is a curriculum that was developed by a team of scientists, engineers, physicists, educators, and award-winning teachers. It is completely hands-on and investigative. Students have to work together to problem solve anywhere from how to prepare for severe weather or power outages, which I'm sure we could have all used this past week. Solutions for protecting our Earth's resources, and then also designing coverings for staying cool in the sun. So these are some of the projects that your children will work on. Our social studies curriculum is taught in 6 to 8 week cycles. We start small and we start very close to home. So we talk about self, we talk about community, we talk about what it means to be a good citizen and what it means to be a good neighbor. And that's our social studies curriculum. And then our family life, this is our health curriculum. It does align to the New Jersey State Learning Standards. And we start small with your kindergartners, and we talk about making good and healthy choices. So we talk about foods, good foods to choose. We talk about healthy relationships and friendships. And this is where we start talking about stranger danger and street signs. So a day in the life of a kindergartner, you were able to view that wonderful video presentation which showed many of these things during the school day. Students are extremely busy, but the good thing is we have many transitions, songs, movement incorporated into the day. Students are taking brain breaks. Students are participating in thoughtful and meaningful play. Students are participating in choice time. So they may be in the kitchen playing with friends and writing down simple menu items. We encourage those students to choose something that they would like to do during that time. Lunch and recess, a very important part of the day. I know you're all wondering about lunch and recess. That time totals up to 1 hour. So students play for half an hour for recess with their age-appropriate peers, and then they have the opportunity to eat lunch for a half an hour. They will take part in many specials. They will have gym, art, music, world languages, and increased exposure to technology. We also have a phonics and handwriting program. And then the day is over and they're ready to come home exhausted but full of new information. So how can you get involved? I hope that you were able to pick up some of the resources that we placed at the back handout table. Some of those resources include wonderful read aloud books to keep your child reading and thinking throughout the summer months. Also some fun and interactive ways to incorporate math outside. and just some wonderful family interactive activities to get students thinking. Another great way to get involved and to foster this partnership is to get yourself involved in the PTO or PTA organization at your school. This evening we do have some of our PTO presidents with us tonight. If you would just stand for us. Give them a round of applause. PTO and PTAs are really crucial to what we do each day in our schools. They provide many additional resources, and the children love to see you when you come in for book fairs, to be part of different things that go on in the school. We also have Mrs. Dirchauer here, who is the president of the Flace PTO, if she would just raise a hand. In September, when you join our school communities, the PTOs will reach out to you and welcome you and give you the opportunity to join different subcommittees and help you kind of to navigate your way to what works best for you in terms of volunteering.
What can you do to prepare your child for the transition to kindergarten? And I think as parents, I was in your shoes not too long ago, and as parents I think we worry more than our children. They will be okay. But some things that you can do before they enter in September is to continue to read to your child every day. This enhances their vocabulary, it enhances their reading, and even their writing. Visit the playground. I know that we're supposed to get snow tonight, and there is still snow on the ground. However, we are, I think, 8 days away from spring, so the weather is starting to get really nice. I saw some tulips the other day trying to push through the snow and the ice. But please come and visit the schools, visit the playground, play on there so they become acclimated and comfortable with their new surroundings. If you have the opportunity, set up play dates for your children, with children in the neighborhood, fellow peers that will be in their class with them in kindergarten. Play games with them, interactive games, board games, Candyland, Uno. These teach them how to work collaboratively. Also, losing is a big part of playing games as well, and they need to learn how to lose gracefully. Singing the alphabet song together, counting everyday objects. So this includes anything, whether it be money, or if you're cooking green beans, maybe when snapping off the ends, you can count the green beans before you cook them. Sorting laundry. These are all everyday objects that you can just work with your children on counting items. Encourage your child to draw, to color, copy shapes when you can, and also, if your child is showing interest, start practicing writing their name, and this will all come in handy as they start in September.
So we don't have any questions yet. You don't have any questions? If you are interested in typing in a question, type 22333 in your 2, and then Jill Lindsay 418, and that will get you into the question area that you can just type in any question that you have, because I know you have questions. Before or after school? So, I don't know, in different schools, they have it at recess sometimes, but after school's fine. Yes, yes.
So if you'd like to bring your child to the playground, because our children currently use the equipment and the recess area, if you could bring them after school, that would be great, and especially during the summer, to get them acclimated with their surroundings.
Okay, so we will be having a kindergarten orientation, and that will be on June 8th, so please save the date. Your students will be invited as well, and we will have them do a 30-minute session where they'll do a little activity with their classroom teacher. And then the principals will tour the parents around the school and show you some of the important areas and get you acquainted with the school. So please save the date. We'd love for you and your child to come and join us. They can kind of acclimate to the school, see the classrooms, be more comfortable. And so it's a great opportunity not only for you, but for your children to come and see the school and get acquainted.
So the times will be sent to you at a later date once we have all of our registrations collected from across the district. And just to clarify, that orientation and the activity that the children are doing in the classrooms will be with our kindergarten teachers. It won't be with their specific teacher just yet. We don't identify that in June. We use that as an opportunity to get to know your child. And then we make decisions after we have all of our enrollment in terms of the classes. We will, yes. Yes. We will notify you as to the date and specific time of that orientation via email. Correct, by email. So we're going to have small groups of children, so they really won't be specifically assessing skills. It'll be just more of a get to know the child and maybe read aloud a story and ask a few questions, see if your child raises their hand. Maybe they're shy and they don't raise their hand. So it won't be a specific screening like we've done in the past. You may be familiar with the screening process that we had in the past if you have an older child in our school district. It won't be like that. No, we're going to use this as an opportunity to get to know your child. Okay. Correct. It's not one-on-one, it's in a group, so it's not, yeah.
So I have one more question. I have seen all these things you told us. My child has gone through Child Development Center for the Community College for the last 3 years, from the age 2 and becoming age 5. So those 3 years, he has been going through most of the things we can see here for 1 year. So can we skip that kindergarten stage so that they always go through those things? And I have the evaluation for those kids also.
So for individual questions about your child, I suggest you contact the school principal, but not in this setting, just do that privately. So the principals are more than happy to speak with any of you on an individual basis. This night is really about trying to speak in generalities. She can certainly share the school phone number with you afterwards if you'd like to see her. Yeah, that would be perfectly fine. Okay, you're very welcome. And just so you know, the curriculum is differentiated for students. So again, as we spoke about before, your child is assessed at the beginning of the year in the area of reading. So your child will be placed at the just right reading level. And so we have the ability to differentiate within the everyday math program. So it is a challenging curriculum that we offer. And again, if there are any individual needs, you just need to get in touch with the teacher and the classroom principal. I mean the school principal.
Yeah, we have a couple of we have questions here already.
We just have a couple we're going to do first, okay? And then we'll get you.
So a question came into our via text about homework in kindergarten. So we do not have official homework in kindergarten. The teachers do give, a 100-day project or random, activities that come up throughout the year that they will assign to your child. But there is no formal homework each night. We just ask that you read with your child every single night. And occasionally there will be a little math activity or things like that, but there's no formal homework in kindergarten.
Okay, we're playing tag team here. There was a question regarding the curriculum across the district. The curriculum is exactly the same in each of the 6 elementary schools at each of the levels.
We have a question.
If my child, or if me and my child, we know a peer in the kindergarten class, can I request that peer to be in her class or her to be placed with a specific peer, or it doesn't work like that?
So just like
like Misty was talking about with the kindergarten orientation, we use that opportunity to kind of observe students and see how they interact and kind of monitor their level socially and emotionally. If you feel that you have a specific need, you would reach out to the building principal. However, we can never guarantee that a child's going to be placed with a friend because we really look at where we feel the child would be placed and in the best interest of the child.
Can you talk a little bit about that process, how you make the determination?
So each classroom is heterogeneously grouped, meaning that there are children of all ability levels. We look at children who potentially qualify for the ESL program, students who may be going out for different services such as speech, things like that. Obviously, we wouldn't want 10 children from a classroom to get up and leave at the same time for a specific service. So we try to balance those things out. And we also do take into account what we've observed the child being able to do, both academically, socially, and emotionally.
But you're saying there is not an individual observation, so I'm just curious how you're going to sort of make those kind of, I mean, you would know which child has an EAP and things like that. How would you know that?
Well, we would know that in advance. If a child has an IEP, we would know that.
So we did have a question with regard to class size. How many students in each kindergarten classroom? We typically try to cap each classroom at 24. Second question and follow-up to that was, how many teachers per classroom? One teacher per classroom. In situations where we have students who are mainstreaming from special education programs, those students would mainstream with a teacher assistant paraprofessional.
I have a couple questions over here.
Okay, question. How long does it take you to assess a child, what level they reading or what level math they doing, and how are you communicating with the parents actually, where they at? So we know and we can provide additional support for them.
So each teacher will meet with a student to assess their reading level one-on-one.
How long is the period?
How long does that take at the beginning of the year?
I'm just saying like a month or 2 months, what period
Oh,
of time?
no, the assessment that they complete with the child involves them reading a book and the teacher kind of looking at different miscues or different encoding or decoding errors that the child is making, and then utilizes that to guide her instruction. The assessment typically takes one-on-one about 10 minutes to meet with a student and read the text to ascertain their level. And then that's communicated with parents in a variety of ways. We have several opportunities for teachers to meet with parents during parent-teacher conferences, and you can always make an appointment with your child's teacher to meet with them before or after school. The teachers are very open to that.
Okay. So within the first months, we're going to know where they at?
Yes.
Okay.
So in November are the first round of parent-teacher conferences, and that is a great time to sit down with your child's teacher. Each teacher typically schedules a conference for about 20 minutes. So it'll be 20 minutes of you sitting down and talking specifically about your child. Back to school night is also another opportunity not to talk to you about your specific child, but for you to gain more specific information about the assessments that your child will be taking and that sort of thing.
There was a question regarding the school day, the start and end of the school day. School begins at 8:35. Students will enter the building. Depending on the school is where your child will be lining up. So, for example, in some buildings, there are doors that lead out from each classroom, and that's where your child may be lining up. And on inclement weather days, students may be coming into the building. It really depends on how the building is run and the facility itself. So that will be addressed by each principal in the orientation. But as far as time frames, students enter the building at 8:35. We have a late bell, 8:40. By 8:45, we have all the students having their attendance taken and also the lunch count. Lunch, as Mrs. Lindsay said before, is 1 hour, and that encompasses having lunch and recess, so a half hour for each. The school day ends at 3 o'clock, and students will be dismissed depending again on the layout of the building and where the child's classroom is, and that will be told to you by the individual principal or the teacher.
One more question. With timing. 3 o'clock the school closes for kindergarten. If the parent can reach by 4 o'clock or something, what you do when you
Yes, we do have what's called before care and after care. Before care starts at 7:15 in the morning and goes till 8:35, and the students are walked down to the classroom by the before care staff. And then after school at 3 o'clock is aftercare. Students can be signed up for aftercare from 3 up to 6 o'clock. Yes, that fee would be assessed through the community school where you originally signed your child up. The prices you can get from the director of the community school, Mr. Mike Shansky.
Can we?
Enrollment for before care and after care starts pretty soon. Yes, that would be, again, done through Mr. Shansky at the community center, community school, which is the trailer outside the high school where you originally signed your child up for kindergarten. Yes. Students can come to school with a lunch, or they can choose to purchase a lunch. Yes, the lunch can be purchased. That's if a child is purchasing a lunch, that's done while the attendance and the lunch count is done in the morning, first thing when the children enter the building. Okay, the transportation, transportation, unless a child has special needs, there is no bus transportation.
And we have another, excuse me, we just have one other question over here. And we'll come back.
Are the students in the classroom the entire day, or do they get to leave for special activities, gym? How often does that happen, and how often are they in the classroom all day?
Sure.
And lunch also, do they have lunch in the cafeteria or in their room?
Okay, there are a lot of questions there. Okay. Answer one of the questions regarding the specials themselves. All students will be going to art, physical education, music, technology, foreign language. I believe those are
Is that outside of their classroom, so they will leave, they're not going to be in the classroom the entire day?
Again, that depends on the building and the makeup of the building. We also have library where students go with their class down to the library where they take out books and they return books as well. So again, that really depends on the makeup of the building and the capability of what those facilities are.
Most of the time, students have a chance to get out of the classroom once a day at least, but again, it does depend on every building. But there are lots of opportunities for breaks. We understand children can't sit for really long periods of time. I can't sit for a really long period of time. So there's lots of movement activities, brain breaks, and things like that that happen in the classroom. Some do yoga and other mindfulness activities right in the classroom. Okay.
Safety precautions.
So we did receive a question regarding safety. We now have two. I don't know if you texted it, but time to step up. So all school doors throughout the course of the day are locked. Visitors to any school in the district must come, well, at the elementary level, must come through the main entrance. Those doors have cameras on them. Visitors must buzz the bell. They'll be prompted by the main office the reason for their visit. They'll then be buzzed in if they have a reason to be in the building. Promptly will visit the main office. If necessary, show identification, and if they're traveling throughout the building, be provided with a pass. During drop-off in the morning, parents will drop and they will not enter the building. No doors are to be propped open throughout the course of the day, and again, every door is locked.
dress?
No, no dress code. So I will also speak to drills. Per the state of New Jersey, we are required to conduct 2 safety drills per month. One is a fire drill, and the second drill is a choice of lockdown, active shooter, hold in place, and what's also called the tabletop to review procedures. Each of those drills is conducted twice throughout the course of the school year, with a fire drill being conducted monthly. And the reason for those drills is to ensure a predictable response by students.
One more thing on the safety. Please do not ask us what are our procedures. We do not give that out specifically, because if we do, or if we announced it, then we're announcing it to everyone, and that is not what we want to do. Our teachers and staff are trained, so please don't ask what are your procedures for a lockdown.
So there was a question about if they have free play in kindergarten, and yes, in fact, they do have free play. At the end of the day, they have choice time, and so there are a series of centers, and they get to choose which one they'd like to go to. It also gives the teacher an opportunity to watch their social interactions and guide those actions while the children are interacting with one another in their free play time. It's about 30 minutes. Yeah, it takes some time because we first have to show them each of the centers, how everything's used appropriately. So by the end of the year, they have a nice bit of time, give or take, to have free center time, free play.
Does anybody raise your hand if you have a question? Come in the back.
Another question came in online about which students in grade levels kindergarten students spend time with on the playground. And every building has different designated areas throughout the property, different blacktop areas, jungle gym equipment, things of that nature, which typically we schedule. We obviously are aware that, kindergartners shouldn't be on the jungle gym at the same time as a 5th grader. They're a little bit bigger in size. They're not aware of their size and space as much. So we schedule them accordingly. So specifically, I can speak to Westmoreland. All the principals do something very similar where the kindergartners may be scheduled for the jungle gym equipment 4 days a week, and then one of the blacktop areas for an additional day. But they are only playing with their grade and age-appropriate peers at that time.
Hi. Can I ask a question? Do I need to stand? So how do you, as a parent, get one-on-one time with your child's teacher aside from the parent-teacher conferences or those random meetings?
The teachers know that you are giving them your baby, your 5-year-old, so they are more than willing to meet and talk with you anytime. They're using before school when they're out on the blacktop on duty and they're talking with parents. They're using their prep time to make a quick phone call and let a parent know that a child had a difficult time or a wonderful something to celebrate. They're using their lunch to make phone calls and send emails. Emails does make it easy to communicate, so when you do have a concern or a question, you can shoot your teacher a quick email to say, I have a concern, and sometimes that warrants a phone call, sometimes it warrants a face-to-face contact, but they're always more than willing. And our teachers do a great job of communicating the curriculum and what the weekly happenings are in the classroom through newsletters and things like that, so there's a lot of ways to include you in your child's education.
Hi, just a quick question on before and after care. I noticed a lot of half days when I looked at the schedule. Is the before and after care open on those half days?
It is, on the half days.
Till 3?
Till 6.
6.
Yes.
Good to know.
Good question. Yes. So our pre-K programs are run through the community school, and that is through, there's information online about the pre-K programs. This is more about getting to know our kindergarten programs, but you will have a kindergartner, I'm sure, right, within. So we just invite all of you to hear about the experience here. Anything else?
Hold on, we have one over here.
I'm not sure if this is the right venue, but Genesis portal is something that I think develops as a students.
Yes.
I'm wondering what gets covered through that and how it's going to be beneficial to parents.
Great question. So we use our Genesis portal to communicate with parents about attendance. So if your child's going to be absent, you can enter it on our Genesis portal to let the office know that your student will be absent. It also is the way that we share report cards. We upload the report cards through there. Another benefit to having Genesis is, I just lost my thought. Oh, all of our forms, I'm sorry, all of our forms at the beginning of the year for you to acknowledge, whether it's technology applications, all permissions for their photo to be taken, that's all. And lastly, conferences. When conferences come up, you log into the Genesis portal, you choose your time to meet with your teacher, and your schedule is done through Genesis.
I have a question about safety on the playground when they're in recess. I know majority of our playgrounds are open, and I would like to know how many teachers are with the kids outside, so to secure the kids. Because so far my daughter is in a gated playground in the back, so how do they know the boundaries, where they're going?
I think that's something that we could address in our individual meetings with you.
I think that's something we could address in our individual meetings with the parents because it is different in all buildings. For example, I'm on a park and I have different procedures. So I think that's something that could be addressed when you meet on the 8th that's specific to your building. And there were some other questions as well written in that were specific to individual schools that we will make sure we address at each of our own presentations on the 8th so that you get the correct information about your specific school. Right now, we're ready to move on to our next portion of the meeting, and we can come back later and have additional questions and answer more questions about kindergarten after this portion. Thank you.
So at this time, we'd like to discuss our referendum, which our vote happens to be tomorrow. So I want to go over first, what is a referendum? A referendum is the district's way of funding a large project. It's sort of like a mortgage. If you think about it, you're borrowing a large amount of money that you're paying off over a longer amount of time. Future residents that move into Fairlawn will also help support the project if the referendum is passed. State debt service aid, which we'll talk about a little bit later, can be up to 15%. I think Mr. Weaver will touch on the state aid a little later. And the referendum vote happens to be tomorrow at all of your polling locations. So if you get the information you need tonight and feel like an informed voter, we encourage you to go out and vote. Why does Fairlawn need a referendum? This will directly affect your students. We found the need for this referendum because our population is growing at a rapid rate. I can tell you that when I started at Lindcrest School 3 years ago, I had 216 students, 216, and just last week we welcomed our 257th. So we are feeling the effects of this growth in enrollment. Class sizes have gotten extremely large, and our schools are overcrowded. We have had to move art classes to carts so that we could free up a classroom for a general education setting, and we really are feeling the effects of this significant increase in enrollment. So students are coming to Fairlawn, which is a wonderful thing because we have a great district and we have great programs to offer all of these students. So they're coming, but the question is, what will we do if we run out of room for all of these new students? We also, if you've ever attended an event at our high school, you know that the auditorium is not air conditioned, so we were looking to put air conditioning in our middle schools and high schools so that we could have programs over the summer, even in the spring when it gets warm, plays and things like that. We have a fabulous music program. We'd love to have air conditioning to make our viewers feel a little more comfortable in those rooms.
So I get to explain this. This graph is can be found in your packet. I can understand that the numbers may be a little bit hard to read. Before I address the graph, let me ask, how many first-time kindergarten parents in the audience? Raise your hand. Okay, hands down. Who's been through it before? Okay, so about 3/4 of our audience is first timers, and about 25% has been there, done that. I am with you. I have a 5th grader currently, I have a 4th grader currently, and I have 5-year-old twins who will be in kindergarten again next year. So not only do I see this presentation through the eyes of a kindergarten parent, I also see this presentation and the work that we've done as an administration with the Board of Education through the eyes of a middle school parent. So in looking at this graph, 2 numbers that I really want to highlight and bring to your attention are, and Ms. D had talked about growth. 2012, 2013 to the present, we have grown, based on the projection, 326 students. Looking forward to the school year 2023, 2022, 2023, we are looking at a projected increase of 537 students. So the question is, where do you put them? Next slide. So we see the significant enrollment growth created the need for elementary and middle school space. Out of those 500 plus students that are projected to enter between the current school year and the 22-23 school year, approximately 150 of them are K-5 students. So in schools that are where we have 15 classrooms at 25 students or more, where do you take and put 150 more students? When you have a school like Lindcrest that's grown by 40, and other elementary schools, if we went around and looked at each one individually, have experienced similar, if not more, growth. A credit to the Board of Education, when we look at this plan this evening, it's not our plan A. Several variations or several alternatives were looked at throughout the course of this process over the last 2 years. And it was determined that this was the best plan for our district moving forward. In working with the district's architect, the architect looked at each building throughout the district and devised a plan in which classroom space could be added. It was determined that... Do I have a plug-in? And it was determined that it's not possible to build on to the current elementary schools as they are constructed.
Couldn't tell you.
We currently have a policy in place that was introduced last year due to the growth in specific, or throughout the district in specific grade levels,
Can you just
where
make sure this
students would be placed
stay on that
in an elementary school that is not their neighborhood school if class sizes in that child's grade level were 25 students or more. And so the goal with this referendum is to eliminate that policy. And then there are major curricular advantages which Mr. Falco will address later on in our presentation. Next slide. So as you look at these first 2 bullets, I won't repeat the numbers for you because they're there in front of you. Later in the presentation, you'll see a slide. We've seen a significant increase or spike in home sales, where we went from 300 to a spike of 400 in 1 year. As Ms. D said, Fair Lawn is an extremely desirable place to live, specifically for schools. I live in Montvale. If I could bring my children to Fair Lawn schools, I would. But it's cost prohibitive for me, because I'd have to pay tuition. And my wife doesn't want to move to Fair Lawn, because we bought her grandfather's house in Montvale, so that's where I'm living. As I said earlier, there are currently 15 classrooms with 25 students or more. That's our current cap. I am a former elementary school teacher. My first job was a 2nd grade classroom with 23 students. My 2nd year, I had 18 students. The custodian came in at the beginning of the year, picked up a table, moved it out of the classroom. The amount that you can do with one less table in the room and 5 children that occupy them
Thank you.
is amazing. And we've heard questions about how much one-on-one time will my child have? How can I get in touch with my with my child's classroom teacher? The research is clear. Students will perform better academically in classrooms with smaller class sizes. Being as I have 4 children, think about it as a parent. Who has more than one child? Anybody have 3 children? All right. So I had to run home after school today, and one child had to go to one gym for one game, the other had to go to another gym for another game, and then the twins had to go with one or the other. My wife said, "Who do you want to take?" I said, "I'll take the 1, and you can have the 3. A little smart. And I know that taking that 1 was going to be a lot easier than listening to 3 fight in the back seat for that 5 minutes on the way to the gym. District enrollment now is 5,025 students. And as you look back to that graph, again, projected increases are 500. So why place grade 5 students in the middle school? In looking at different configurations, our principals, our subject supervisors, our central office administration, we visited several towns throughout Bergen County to look at best practices. How do grade 5 configurations work in their districts? We looked at several districts with 5 through 8 configurations. The question I've heard throughout this process is, well, why do districts decide to configure in certain ways? Space. I worked in coastal school districts before coming to Fairlawn. We had a K4 configuration and a 5A configuration, and it was dictated by the space we had available to us in both schools. As a parent in Montvale, my children are in a K4 configuration and a 5A configuration. And as a principal and a parent, I can tell you that the 5th grade structure in the middle school, I've seen such greater benefits for my son moving on to the middle school for a variety of reasons that Mr. Foco will address. And as a principal, we live in a day and age where we talk about movement and getting kids up and going. I see 5th graders now, and the ability for them to get up and move throughout the course of a school day in a middle school every 40, 80 minutes, to work with a variety of teachers in a house structure that will be described in a bit more detail, has numerous benefits that we're not able to provide them now in that K-5 structure. It would also keep our 5th graders in their neighborhood schools. A number of configurations were looked at, including a 5-6 model and a 7 and 8 model, that would have also required students being transported across town. That comes at a significant cost. And when you're dealing with a budget that you're only able to increase by 2% each year, to add upwards of $750,000 to $1 million just in transportation costs, I believe those were the right numbers. It made more sense to keep students on their side of town in their neighborhood middle schools. But why those transportation costs? The state of New Jersey dictates that any student who lives more than 2.0 miles in the K-8 setting from their school is entitled to transportation. So to take students from one side of town and transport them to the other creates costs for the district. So again, numbers that you've seen before. I'll highlight bullet number 2. As you've probably been reading and hearing in the news, several towns in Bergen County have been dealing with having to create opportunity for low-income housing. And with that, builders have looked to create developments in communities where they would have low-income developments and market-rate developments. In Montvale, if you're familiar with Montvale, we have the Mercedes building and the Sony building that will be no more. They've been acquired by developers, and developers will be turning them into condominium projects and apartment projects. We are a town of 3,000 people, 3,000 homes. Those developments will create 1,000 new developments for us. So the situation that we are dealing with in Montvale is the same situation that we're dealing with here in Fairlawn, where we have a development, the landmark at Radburn, which is going to create several units, which will produce a number of elementary school, middle school, high school children. Then the question becomes, where will those students go? Based on the current building sizes that we have available to us. And with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Folco, who will address the middle school structure.
Thank you. This is something that's dear to my heart. 25 years ago, when I was teaching at Warren Point School, we had an opportunity where TJ Middle School was the Board of Ed offices of the Special Ed Department. The Board of Ed decided to turn TJ back into a school. Very wise decision. Part of that decision was, what are we going to do with that school? At the time, the elementary schools were becoming a little bit crowded, and they decided to take the 6th grade students from the elementary schools and now put them into their neighborhood middle schools. One of our board members, Mrs. Wallace, was teaching with me at the time, so she knows that very well. And it was a very exciting time, because it wasn't just putting 6th grade students at the middle school. It was taking students and having them join what's called a house concept. The house concept is to take a certain amount of students that a core of teachers would be teaching and getting to know those students extremely well. If you think about what our elementary schools are right now, we have grade levels. So we may have 2, 3, 4 teachers on a grade level. They get to know those students extremely well. At the middle school, you would have, for instance, one model would be a math teacher, a science teacher, a social studies teacher, and an English teacher. And those 4 teachers would share approximately 100 students. And they would really get to know who those students are. They'd be able to delve in and get to know them not just academically, but socially and emotionally. And to help those students grow, not just as academic students, but as good products of our school system. So, what else can the house concept give us? It can give us special projects. When the houses were formed, each house had their own name and they had their own identity. And it was very nice. I remember Mrs. Wallace was part of the Knights, and they did special projects within science, social studies, math, English, where it was more interdisciplinary. Again, now you have teachers working together, a common planning time with teachers so they can actually see what's going on in each of their classrooms, so it's not as segregated as it had been in the past. So the house concept is a wonderful idea, and Fairlawn is bringing that back, and I'm very excited for the middle schools. What else will we do with the middle school students going from 4th grade to 5th grade? We'll make sure that they will have a smooth transition. Right now, students who go from 5th grade to 6th grade have an orientation. They actually attend an orientation with the other 2 schools that they'll be meeting those other students. They get a tour of the middle school. They actually have presentations by students and staff in those schools. So we really try to make the transition as easy as possible. And I can tell you right now, there are only 2 things that children are worried about when they go to middle school. Am I going to get to class on time? And am I going to get my locker open? And anyone have a middle school student here? Am I right? Absolutely. Right, Mrs. Menchikoff. Thank you. I didn't plant her in the audience. But so we as elementary principals and staff need to make sure that the students are ready for middle school. We have a harder time as adults making that transition. Children do. If you have a child in middle school right now who went from 5th grade to 6th grade this past year, There may have been a little bit of trepidation, and then after the first week or so, they're off, they're running. They can't wait to go to after-school activities. There are other things that happen at middle school. Drama club. There's a music department that does extra activities after school. So there are many opportunities for students to grow. What else can we do for our students at the middle school? Right now, if a child is in an ELL or an ESL program, English as a second language, they may have to attend one middle school. Well, what we're trying to do is to make each of the two middle schools equal in what we offer to our students. And one of the programs is the ESL program. Our English language learners, it's more important for them to really go to their home school. So we like to mirror the programs at the two middle schools. We would also do that with our special education programs. Right now we do have some students who go to one middle school because that program is at the one middle school. We'd like to offer that at both middle schools. Next slide. So, what will it look like? You probably have seen the pictures over here. We have large charts that show Thomas Jefferson School and Memorial Middle School and what the projections will look like, what those renderings will look like. At TJ, we'll have 14 new academic classrooms. We'll make some upgrades to the cafeteria. We'll actually create what's called the cafetorium. And the cafetorium is a multi-purpose room where you can use it for different venues. You can have a small group instruction in there. You can have a play in there if you needed play practice. If one of the houses wanted to get together and do a special activity, that's where they could go to do that. Again, it will afford the students more opportunities. Also, as Mr. Weaver said before, the air conditioning. What we like to do is to make sure that we have that availability, not just during certain months of the year, but all throughout the year. So we do have summer school programs that go on. Well, they do drama during the summer as well. We'd like them to do that at the middle schools where they could do it in an air-conditioned auditorium. And we would also need an elevator to bring the building up to code. Memorial, we're proposing very similar ideas. We need 9 new classrooms. Again, we need upgrades to the cafeteria. They're proposing to put in a new media center. Right now, where the media center is, will be classrooms and the elevator, I believe, correct? By the media center. So we need that space, and we need to move the classrooms over a little bit. So I believe at the memorial, we could not put on certain part of the addition. We couldn't go out. You want to explain that?
So very quickly, because of where Memorial is located, we are not allowed to build on the ground level because of the river, so we can only build up. So we need to put a second story on at Memorial Middle School. So right now there are 2 sort of parallel hallways on either side of the auditorium at Memorial, and we are proposing to build on top of those 2 hallways. So we would build classrooms above the area where the cafeteria currently is, and then we would build a media center and another couple of classrooms above the main hallway where the offices are right now. And then we would connect that to the existing 2nd floor, and that's why we need to go through the media center.
Thank you. We did get the slide. And again, we would be air conditioning the auditorium and putting in an elevator. And what are we doing for our high school? Because remember, we have to be equitable across the board. Our high school auditorium is used probably 90% of the year. And we like to air condition that as well to hold more programs in there. Mr. Weaver will come back and talk a little bit about the cost.
Question?
Before you go to cost, how about the separation between students, interaction with 5th graders and 8th graders? Still concerned about taking them out of elementary school and putting them in our older children. Good question.
So the question was, what is that going to look like when the 5th graders go to the middle school? So The fifth graders will basically have their own wing where they will spend the majority of their time. It is impossible for us to say that fifth graders will never encounter sixth, seventh, or eighth grade students, but they would have their own lunch. They would have their own courses, their own classes, just as fifth grade students, and they will primarily be in these new classrooms. Obviously, they would have to go to the gym, the lunchroom, the music room, and art room, and things like that. But for most of the time, they would be in their wing.
One last question. In regards to you're doing 5, 6, 7, 8 now, dropping off and picking up kids, right? So I know it's been a little bit challenging parking, trying to pick up and drop off. Will you stagger the times in any way?
We haven't made that decision yet if we are going to stagger the start and end times. We have had some traffic studies done in both of the middle schools, and we're going to be working on that, I believe, this summer at TJ, starting to work on those traffic patterns. So that has not been decided yet. We are keeping that option open. Any other questions before we continue? Yes.
How long will this project take? And in that, how is that going to resolve the overcrowding of the schools?
So tomorrow is the referendum. We'll know tomorrow if it passes, and then we will immediately start with all of the next steps, which is going out to bid and hiring all those that we need to actually do the projects. And then it will take 2 years to build from there. So in the meantime, we are going to continue to use soft borders as a way to help alleviate the overcrowding when we can. It has certainly helped this year. We still have classrooms that are overcrowded because families have been grandfathered in, and we made sure to tell families that if they lived here that they had the right to go to their neighborhood schools. So in instances, though, where we've been able to take advantage of the soft borders, it has definitely helped with those situations in the elementary school.
Just to prepare for the war, in case the soft border continues, correct? What would happen if we run out of room at all our elementary schools? Will we need more teachers in our kindergartens? Will we need more help for the kids to stay focused? What are the options in case the worst?
Right. So if class sizes continue to go up in between in those 2 years,
What
is your
teachers
question?
are going to do for our kids?
Right. So in some schools, we have a little wiggle room where we'll be able to add additional teachers. There are some schools that have, quite frankly, run out of space for us to add those additional classrooms. So we have added some paraprofessionals in some of our classrooms to help with, helping in the classroom. And so we have done that already. We've done that.
Sorry. Okay, so we have, for example, we have 25 kids and 1 class.
Oh, you know what? That's not. I turned that off. I'm sorry.
So we have 25 kids in 1 classroom, for example. Will it be necessary to have 2 teachers in that classroom? Maybe separate the classes?
The concern right now is separating the class. There's nowhere for them to go. So in some schools, that classroom, that available classroom does not exist. So that is part of our struggle right now, which is why we need the referendum. So there have been instances when we have gone above the 25. As I said, we have hired paraprofessionals to go in and help. There's also times when not all 25 students are in the class at the same time, and some go out for services. But we are doing our very best to take care of those situations as they arise.
Hello. So the gentleman over there mentioned the need for, maybe somebody else, I can't remember. But you mentioned the need to be equitable, and I've seen there's been a lot of discussion about referendum on social media and elsewhere. And I've seen some estimates that the referendum is not going to address overcrowding in all elementary schools. Specifically, my child will start in Mills, so it's on my mind. So can you talk about how it will address overcrowding in each and every elementary school?
So I can't go into details. I don't have that data in front of me, but obviously we have had multiple demographers do studies. We've done enrollment projections, and we had statistical analysis as well come in and do a look-see at our numbers, and basically we can project out 5 years, and based on the numbers that we see, we will be fine with this referendum. I know that there's a lot of different information, but
We've hired several experts to look at it, and according to our experts and the demographic studies, we will be fine with the referendum that we are proposing tomorrow.
Any plans to build up another elementary school in Fairlawn?
Are there plans to build an elementary school?
Yes.
No, there are not.
And how the overgrowth, what's going to happen in high school?
The high school is fine. The high school has been much larger in enrollment numbers than it currently is. So the high school can certainly handle it. Middle school and high school, because of the way that they schedule, we have greater flexibility in how we put students into classes. It's a little bit tougher in an elementary school when you have children in a self-contained class all day long. So you really you need those dedicated classrooms in an elementary school where you have greater flexibility in middle school and high school.
I just want to know, like, how does this work right now? Like, I get the referendum, but when my child enters school, there's 25 children. How is that teacher going to deal with 25 5-year-olds? Like, that's what my main concern is. So, like, I understand it's like I only have one child and dealing with 25 of them at the same time. So, with one teacher, I don't see how that's possible.
So
that's
again,
very concerning for me to bring my child to school.
Sure. So what we have been doing is we have been hiring paraprofessionals to help in those classrooms. If we have gone, I'm sorry, say it again?
8 till 3? Like, are they there the whole time?
Yes.
Yes.
In which schools? Because my son is in K Mills, 24 kids, no para. So
24 children.
Yeah, so
that's correct.
Which schools have the paras? Just interested to know.
We go up to 25 students.
So only at 25 they get a para?
That's correct. In the kindergarten classroom, that's correct.
So what you're saying, when there's 24 children, there's one adult for 25 children, 5-year-olds?
That's correct.
That's not sufficient.
So even if I do vote for this referendum tomorrow, it's not going to help my child when he enters school in September. Is that correct?
I'm not sure I understand your question. This referendum is 2 years away.
Oh, so that basically that has nothing to do with our kids entering school?
No, of course it has something to do with you. I'm not sure I understand your question.
So my child is entering school September. Correct.
Right.
So when my kid goes to school, there's going to be 24? Is my kid's going to go to
I don't know how many children will be in your child's classroom, but our policy allows us to put up to 25 students in the kindergarten classes.
So what I want to try to understand, when my son enters the school, there's a possibility there's going to be one adult for 24 kids.
That's correct. And that has basically been our policy for as long as I've been here.
So what I'm trying to understand, how do you deal with 24 5-year-olds?
Our teachers are amazing, and it is challenging, but our teachers do it. Hold on one second.
I'm sorry, I just want to add something. Mrs. Stark there was talking before about the amount of teachers in a classroom. Depending on who is in that classroom, for example, I could say at Milton School there are 2 kindergarten classrooms that do not have paras. However, during the day, the ESL teacher comes in for an hour a day to assist in the language arts portion of the day. Some of the times there are other people. The occupational therapist comes in sometimes. So we do try to add someone else to that setting to make sure that there are 2 people in there as available.
Could I just follow up on that? Like, my child primarily right now speaks Russian. So
Yes.
when he goes into school, for the first 3 months, he will not understand. I'm assuming the teacher will only speak English, correct?
That is correct.
So what are you guys going to do to help my child to learn?
I think part of it I just answered because.
Yeah, but for 1 hour, so for...
And then the child at some part of the day goes with the ESL teacher, and some parts of the day the ESL teacher goes into the classroom.
But what is he going to do the hours that he's with the,
Okay. That's an individual question for a school. I think we really need to stick to the whole picture right now. Thank you.
I have a question. So I know you mentioned that you ran the analysis and the numbers, but what I haven't heard to date is a projection of what the average class size per school, per grade level will be after the referendum. I have not heard that number, and it's hard for me to justify voting yes tomorrow to that kind of a referendum cost of $25 million without knowing how this will solve the issue in each school and each grade level.
So I know that school is
Thank you for the question. At this time, we're here to answer referendum questions. We don't have the details to go into the demographics and what the average class size.
But the referendum is meant to solve overcrowding, so you're asking us to vote yes without telling us that it will solve overcrowding.
Correct, but the projected number, I'm being told, is 23, and I understand that, but tonight's presentation was about the kindergarten orientation and the referendum, and please let me finish. I understand that you have questions about average class sizes, but I can't tell you every specific average class size after the referendum. However, I can tell you that it will decrease class sizes across the board and alleviate the space issues that we do have.
So you can guarantee that in every school it will actually decrease the size?
I will tell you that it will decrease the size in every school.
Don't you think it's essential for us to know what the class sizes will be post-referendum before spending the money?
I cannot give you that answer right now. You could stand, I apologize, but I cannot give you that answer right now.
I can talk to people
Question
about
about
afterwards
referendum.
too, if you want to
Our
talk about
current
it.
kindergartners, are they going to be affected with K to 4th grade and 5th to 8th grade middle school? Like
sorry.
our kids
Yes.
right now. They entering kindergarten? Is the elementary school going to be over for them at the 4th grade or the 5th grade?
Elementary school.
At this point, at this point.
At this point, as of tomorrow, it's going to be kindergarten and 5th grade.
If the referendum takes place, I want to know if my daughter will enter the middle school in 4th grade or 5th grade.
It's the current second graders as of today will be in 5th grade.
5th grade where?
At the middle school.
At the middle school.
If
So second
referendum
week is
passes.
already, so this is already taking effect?
Yes.
If it passes.
If it passes.
If it passes, I'm more sure than it passes. So, you know,
I got a question. Why is the state only giving us $3.8 million out of the 25?
So the state looks at the 20, we proposed to the state a $25 million referendum based off of our architect's analysis, and the state looks at ratables that could come back to us, and they looked at $3.8 million and said that that's what could come back to the district, so we'll be funding it a certain amount.
And that's, what was that? Is that like about 50% of?
That's actually the maximum allowable for our project. And again, I am not the business administrator. I'm just going to kind of piggyback on Nick, what he said. So there are certain projects that are eligible for funding, and we got the maximum allowable.
So
Some projects are worth 40% funding, and we did get that, but overall for our project, we're receiving 15%.
This is 15%. So this is the most we get.
This is the maximum that we can get, yes. And so if the referendum passes, we will get $3.8 million of that paid for.
The $3.8 million is the most we could get whether we have a $25 million referendum, $30 million referendum, or $50 million referendum. There's a formula that the state uses called unhoused students. And no matter how big the referendum is, if we made it bigger so that we had 10 kids in a class, we want to spend $100 million, the state would still only give us $3.8 million because according to them, according to the demographics and the architecture, we only need this referendum. And we agree this referendum will work. But the state aid is $3.8 million no matter how much we spend, $25 million or above. I just want to make that clear. There's no more state money if we make a bigger referendum. It's not going to be, if you do $15 million, they'll give you $7.2 million. It doesn't work that way.
Everything that has been proposed in the referendum will take place, correct?
Correct.
The air conditioners, the classrooms. What happens if we go above the 25 million to taxpayers?
We're not allowed.
We cannot go above the 25 million.
But everything that is proposing will get them.
That's correct. That's correct.
And have we planned as a community in case a wall falls down while we're doing the remodelation or something happens? The budget has to come out from somewhere. Will come out from our tax.
Sorry, I don't understand.
What happens if we go above our budget?
We
We can't,
cannot
we're not
go
allowed.
above that budget. It is $25 million.
million.
I think she means if something happens, they
An
find
emergency.
termites or whatever, and
So
the
then
renovation
we have
costs more.
capital
Where does the money
reserve.
come from?
We have capital reserve money built into our budget in case there ever is an emergency.
I understand the older population problem isn't going away, so let's say the referendum doesn't pass. The problem's not going to disappear, so what happens then? And does the referendum actually solve the problem, or does it just kick the can down the road for 5 years or 6 years or however many years before the overpopulation catches up with us again? Like, how long-term of a solution is this referendum is my question, and what happens if it doesn't work for whatever reason?
So demographic studies can only go out 5 years. So based on our 5-year projection, we are fine with the referendum.
5 years.
So that's what our studies had told us. And I forgot your first part of your question.
If the referendum doesn't pass,
If the
what happens
referendum
5
doesn't
years?
pass, we
Yeah.
continue with soft borders. We have to plan again to go out for a referendum again in the future, which will probably put us back about 6 months, I would assume, because there's a lot of work that would have to be done, and there's also only certain times of the year that you're allowed to hold these special elections, or these special votes. So
That's very
That's where
impressive.
we're at right now.
Very impressive that the baby's sleeping like that too, by the way.
Yeah, I'm trying to keep it awake, actually. It's failing at it. It's not like I'm doing a good job here.
No.
That is how you start presentation.
Well, don't you think part of the problem or the solution
The town keeps building new condominiums and stuff, so that has to do with the schools as well, right?
So yes, we expect, 107? I think we're projecting 107 students to come from the crossings at Radburn. So that does impact our numbers exactly.
So they decide to build it before to have the referendum, basically. The town built the condominium, everything is built.
The town approved the building
before the referendum takes place, and right?
Yeah, that's been in the works. I don't know when that was approved.
Well, no, I'm just trying to.
No, the crossings at Radburn were not approved by the town. The town fought it for 5, 6, 7 years and lost. So that was called something called builder's remedy, which I think you're familiar with, that when the town doesn't have enough affordable housing, the builder comes in and sues and says, we're going to build 160 units, only 30 of them affordable. And apparently that's supposed to solve the housing crisis. And the town fought it. Radburn sold the property, the developer bought it, he's developing it. There's other developments I won't say in progress, but from what I understand, they're not going to be, I think they're going to be senior housing and some other stuff. But we never know what's coming down the road. 2, 3, 4 years from now, something else could happen. And the town has fought it. I'll give credit to the council. They didn't want this, but we ended up with it because of the co-op, whatever that stands for, I forget.
Council Affordable Housing. And just in terms of time frames, so again, this is an issue that every Bergen County town has been confronted with, and everyone had to create an affordable housing plan for their town. Towns that were able to accomplish that are then given immunity until the year 2025. So the hope is that the next time Fairlawn has to deal with dense developments will not be until that year, when that round, I believe it's round 5, would take place.
So, question, all these developments that are going up, particularly the one, how come there can't be a fee or something that gets included in that for them? If they want to be able to build these things and have all these people, why not have them included to put somebody into it, not just the taxpayer?
It's a great question. It's illegal.
What?
It's illegal.
Illegal.
Per the state of New Jersey. And they pay for services through their tax base.
I've got a question. If that's the case, then why don't we go to the state and tell them, like, look, we got more affordable houses in this town, and that makes the population to increase. So in that case, we should get more aid state.
As was explained by Mr.
No, I
Daniel,
understand, yeah, but you
the
know what
state
I'm
has a
saying.
formula and we are bound by that formula.
Is it okay if I talk?
Absolutely.
For a minute or two, please listen to me, ladies and gentlemen, people on the board, and people in the government, lawyers, accountants. This referendum is necessary. It should be voted yes. I already voted because I vote by absentee ballot. I work at the polls on election day, so I have to vote by absentee ballot. One thing about this referendum, which I really like, is the air conditioning in the high school. I want to tell you, I went to a concert and I had to walk out. It was unbearable. And it's unbearable for seniors, middle-aged people, children. It was a concert. And after I walked out, one of the performers collapsed, and the police and ambulance corps had to come and take the person to the hospital. From what I understand, the person suffered a heart attack and was brought on by the heat. Air conditioning is necessary. I think it should be in every classroom because the humidity is unbearable. And I had to walk out because I like the show and I want to enjoy the show. I couldn't enjoy it, so I walked out. All the issues you raised, this is about the best referendum that can be brought out to solve the problem of overcrowding. You have examined all the options, the different issues, and you have different proposals, including looking at a new school, sending kids from Radburn Edison School to out of town. That's not the best solution. This is the best solution. It should be voted yes. I already voted yes. I'm pro-education. No solution is perfect. There could be emergencies in the future, 5-10 years from now. If there's an emergency, you have the money to deal with it. I mean, a roof could collapse, a leak could come in on the floor, a wall could collapse, anything could happen. You can't predict for 10, 20 years that. I'm not going to say there's not going to be an emergency. You might need to expand the school further. So I'm expressing my viewpoint, and I hope the whole community listens to what I have to say, because I believe very strongly in this referendum, and I wish you all the best. Thanks for the excellent job you're doing.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question. So I guess one of the things that's been difficult for me personally, not having the familiarity with the K to 12 system, I wasn't educated here in the United States, has been all the opposing opinions about this referendum, and it really makes, for some parents, difficult to make the decision. So I know that there is some opposition to this referendum, and I've heard the voices for it. And I know there's some opposition within the board and within the schools to this. So I know, Emily, I don't want to call you out on this, but I know you've been opposing to that. Can you talk about why, so we can make an informed decision?
Sure, I'm the person who's keeping you from going home and kissing your kids goodnight, so I'll just be brief. So I'm Emily Cohen. I'm a new member on the board, and actually I suggested that we do a kindergarten presentation, and I'm so thankful to the administration for picking it right up, and I think we should all give each other a round of applause for making it out with small kids being here, so that's great. Okay, so on the referendum, yes. My thing is kind of, I just want everyone to be an informed voter, just like I'm sure anybody else up here. And I think we can share that value, and I think we can also share the knowledge that we have to do something as a district to address growing enrollment. No one doubts that, and that we care about all kids and all of Fairlawn. I've looked at the numbers a lot of what, especially at the elementary school level, how this plan of the 5th graders out will actually, the mechanism that it will alleviate large class sizes. And my own analysis, which I am happy to share with people, is that because the elementary schools are not all starting at an equal point of being overcrowded today, what you effectively do is you free up 16% more classroom space in each of the schools. So yes, it's likely to reduce class sizes for all schools across the grade levels, but if you're starting at a higher average class size, and everybody's going down 1 or 2 kids per class, it will bring down the schools that aren't having large class sizes right now to even lower. And the schools with the large class sizes already, they'll bring it down a little bit, but the question is it good enough? And my own analysis suggests that, for example, in schools like Warren Point and Milnes, if you get 10% or less growth at those schools, even within the next 5 years, class sizes are going to creep up above an average that I don't think that we would be very happy with. And based on past enrollment growth, that is likely to happen. That also being said, the demographic projections that have been done around Radburn Crossing specifically, I think are probably low. They're based on old demographic estimates. And so the number of elementary kids, K through 5, that are expected, according to one demographer, it's 55 kids, another I think it's 73. And this is for 165 townhomes in the Radburn Association. Now, those kids, I think it's fair to say, those kids haven't been zoned anywhere, and the board has said repeatedly that we'll make that decision at a future date. But on the assumption that 3 of our elementary schools currently have more space today, like the schools that have done more of the receiving for soft borders children, those 3 schools might be more likely to receive Radburn Crossing children just because they have more space today. And if those numbers are way higher than what we anticipate, those schools' average class sizes could also potentially be large as well in the future. And so I just think it's important for the community to understand this and come to their own conclusions about whether they assess this plan as adequate even for the next 5 years. Because it is the young kids today, the ones who are in kindergarten, 5 years from now they're going to be in 5th grade. And I know many of us have even smaller children than kindergartners, and they're the ones who are going to be going to the elementary school in the next 5 years too.
So what's the plan then if that happens?
We're done. I would like to thank everyone for coming. I'm just going to close by saying this referendum gives us 17 or 18 classrooms in all the elementary schools, 3 or 4 on the east side and 2 on the west side. All right, so you do the simple math. All right, Emily, I don't agree with your analysis. You know that. We can get into the weeds about stale multipliers, about census districts, but what it comes down to is this. We're adding 23 classrooms to the middle school. We're moving the 5th graders out of the elementary schools. We're freeing up 17 to 18 classrooms in all the elementary schools. The simple math is there are going to be smaller classes. West side has always had smaller classes than the east side for 40 years. So if you're on the east side of town, you've always had bigger classes. If you're on the west side of town, you've always had smaller classes. All right? And that's just the way it's always been, and probably always will be. But this referendum brings down class sizes. It's as simple as that. More in some districts and in some schools than in others. So that being said, if you want any more information, there's a ton of it out there. It's on our website. There's a bunch of different things on Facebook. You have our emails. I haven't gotten too many questions, but I want to thank you all for coming, especially new parents, new kindergartners. I know it started as a fun meeting and turned into this. But I want to thank you all for coming, and I want to wish you the best of luck when we start kindergarten next fall. Thank you.